One more thing, JJ, going back, I do want to tell you as to how close I feel to you. My wife loved you, and you are absolutely right about everything you said, but you are dead wrong about one thing, and I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul.
Well, Alex Murdaugh's attorneys cut him a great deal, but the guy still ended up with more than 2 decades added to his prison sentence. Now, that's a really important deal, and I'm going to tell you why if you stick around, because this is an insurance policy that's desperately needed with the shenanigans that the defense is pulling right now. Well, hey folks, thanks for joining Profiling Evil, and thanks for subscribing. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button over there, and make sure you're getting all the notifications. Now, for years, South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh looked at his anguished clients directly in the eyes, promising to help them with medical bills, suffering, or simply to survive. He stole some, if not all, of their money, the money that he won for them. Now, those clients got to look Alex Murdaugh in the eye yesterday and tell him how much he's destroyed their lives, how much he's destroyed their trust. This disgraced lawyer was sentenced to 27 years for stealing about $12 million, actually a little more than $12 million. His childhood friend, Jordan Jinks, said, I'm not crying for the money that you stole from me. I'm crying for what you did to everybody else. He went on to say he would have just given Murdaugh the money. Now, the courtroom drama unfolded amidst another step in this powerful attorney's downfall after he murdered his wife and his son. He was convicted of that murder, and that thing's under a challenge right now for a rehearing, a retrial, because of allegations the defense has raised against the county clerk, saying she influenced jury members. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens, but this is why what happened yesterday is so incredibly important. Now, Murdaugh appeared in his orange jumpsuit, something that he's probably become pretty accustomed to, and he listened as all of his victims were recounting how he destroyed their lives. They talked about what a commanding presence he had in South Carolina and what a seductive charm he had and how that, frankly, duped him. And folks, that's a great warning for all of us. There's somebody that's really charismatic. You got to make sure that there are other things to corroborate the promises that they might make. It's why we see people invest in people who are friends or family friends, only later to find out that they were stealing their money. Well, this childhood friend of his, when he was talking yesterday, spoke about the hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills that he had from a neck injury that he got when somebody rear-ended his car. He paid those bills in advance, and that's what's really tragic, being assured by Murdaugh that he was going to get him a bucket load of money. But Murdaugh, instead of giving him the money to pay his bills, kept the money, and he financially ruined his buddy. He financially crushed his buddy as a result of this. On the stand, as he testified and gave his victim impact statement, he turned to Murdaugh and his guy Jinks said, "Listen, you stole money from me. I would have given it to you. You were such a good friend." Well, the state prosecutors and the defense lawyers negotiated a 27-year prison sentence for Murdaugh. He was originally charged with serving 101, or he was originally charged with 101 felonies, and that was reduced down. But keep in mind, this guy is found guilty of killing his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Remember Paul, he shot with a shotgun, his own son. Now, Clifton Newman was the judge presiding in this hearing and in the murder trial. In fact, he's bore this thing for 2 years. He's going to retire in about 4 weeks, and this is a case that has just really weighed heavily on him. Now, Murdaugh got on the stand and he adamantly denied killing his family members. Now, keep in mind, his lawyers are seeking a retrial. because they say the county clerk tampered with the witness. And that's why this is so stinking important, because if he gets that retrial, he could have been released from jail until this conviction yesterday. And that's why this thing is so important, because regardless of what happens, he has to stay in jail. He was sentenced for financial crimes as kind of a insurance policy. That's really what this is, because if that conviction is overturned under South Carolina law, Murdaugh still has to spend nearly 28 years. He'd be 76 years old by the time he was released. Doesn't matter if he was a model prisoner or not, he has to spend the next 28 years in prison, regardless of whether that thing's overturned. Now, Judge Newman said Tuesday that in his opinion, Murdaugh had one of the emptiest souls of any case he's ever handled in the 23 years that he's been on the bench as a judge. Now think about that. He said the only person worse than Alec Murdaugh, in his opinion, was a man who was sentenced to death by the judge for killing an off-duty police officer and then burning his body.
The question was asked, what kind of animal are you? You're an enigmatic person. I don't know that you understand yourself. What comes to mind is a young man that I sentenced to death penalty for killing a police officer and setting his body on fire. And though personally I was opposed to capital punishment, he was sentenced to death. And in writing up that sentence report, I concluded that he was heartless. He was just empty. And when I see you and I listen to you and I reflect on all that I've seen since being appointed, assigned to these cases, you come closest to that young man. Being empty, I don't see anything. I tried to reach you at sentencing in the other case. I've listened to you here today, and I don't see anything there. Hopefully something will emerge within your spirit, within your soul.
Now, in court, the question was asked, what kind of animal could Alec Murdaugh be? Now, Newman referred to that case, and he referred to comments made by Jinx and many others, and he just, almost scratching his head, said, "You're an enigma. I don't think you even understand yourself," suggesting that the court, and probably all of us, will never understand Alec Murdaugh. Now, I want to talk about what Murdaugh did on the stand, because it was so frustrating to me. But first, I want to pause long enough to tell you about some books I'm pushing for Christmas, and I hope you'll buy them. Many of you have already, so thank you for your patience as I go through this. But please consider sharing this offer with any of your friends, because the money derived from the Deceived book is going to help build a children's justice center, an advocacy center, set to break ground. In fact, set to break ground any day, unless this Utah weather forces the contractor to wait until spring. But it'll be finished in 2024, and we really look forward to bringing that to you. Well, hey everybody, I'm Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to share 2 great gift ideas for the 2023 Christmas holidays. I'm making available at a special price 2 of my most popular books. First is Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult, and the second is She Knew No Fear. You can purchase them individually, or you can get them at a special bundled price. And right now, as a special, I'll be signing them if you'd like. Now, Deceived is about my investigation into and the ultimate takedown of a ritual child abuse cult that was sexually abusing children, a large group of children. 12 people were ultimately convicted in this thing following a pre-dawn raid. And although the court process ended decades ago, the suffering that was endured by the children continues today. Now, I wrote this book because some of the victims asked me to tell their story. It happened during a presentation of the case on the Dr. Phil show, as well as several other international news channels. And I was so compelled by the children asking this, now adult women, that we went ahead and wrote the book. The book doesn't reveal the horrors that the kids faced, but it acknowledges that the abuse occurred. More importantly, it's a story about how destructive cults, like this one, can be destroyed, where the system works and where the system failed in that case. And it talks about how the investigation and the prosecution literally changed the way in which cults are handled today. The book explores the cult recruiting tactics used by this particular group, and they seem to be consistent with other cults. It also talks about how we can protect our loved ones from falling prey to these perverted predators. And here's the really cool news from my perspective. Proceeds from Deceived are going toward building a new children's advocacy center. That's a place where children can be forensically and physically examined, receive physical and emotional care while being prepared for the court system. The hope is that when they walk out of the doors of a children's advocacy center, they're healthier than when they arrived. Deceived is in paperback, and it's available signed for $20. Now, my other book is She Knew No Fear, and it's a story about how I solved my great-great-grandmother's murder. She was shot and killed at a town celebration back in 1891. The story chronicles her journey from her native Scotland home to the United States. This woman walked barefooted across the plains of the United States, and she conquered the perilous Hole in the Rock expedition. She fought wild Indians, and she settled in the Four Corners area of the United States, only to be gunned down at age 40, leaving children behind. One of those children was my grandfather. Now, the book explores how I solved her murder 130 years later, and how miracles from heaven, in my opinion, guided my investigation, resulting in the discovery of my great-great-grandfather's handwritten account of the murder. If you like stories about the Wild West, family history, true crime, this is a book for you, and I think you'd really enjoy She Knew No Fear. Now listen, thanks so much for your support of Profiling Evil. You can get She Knew No Fear hardbound versions for $30 signed and delivered, or you can get a bundle of both books for $45, and I'm happy to put a little personal inscription if you'd like that in there, but you gotta order quickly. Now, thanks for all your support of Profiling Evil, and for those of you who are Christian, Merry Christmas. And for the rest, happy holidays, everyone. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.
Well, thanks for considering those books, and thanks for being patient with me while I push those. Now, for his part, Murdaugh took the stand yesterday. He spent nearly 45 minutes apologizing to his family. He apologized for bringing them dishonor and shame, dishonoring them. He addressed his victims and his victims' families. Think about that, Maggie's family as well. Now, he didn't cry as much as he did during his murder trial when he testified in his own behalf, but he still put on quite a show. In fact, one comment that seems to have hit social media pretty heavily is he said, quote, "I want each of you who's spoken to know that I've heard you," speaking to the victims who were telling him what happened. He said, "I heard you. Your pain and your hurt is palpable, and I promise it's resonating with me," close quote. I don't know, would you believe that it was resonating with him? The prosecutor certainly didn't believe it, and he reminded the state one of the same things that he reminded them during Alec Murdaugh's murder trial. Now again, remember, this is yesterday, about a $12 million theft of money, something that he got away with for more than 10 years. In the end, the actual amount was more like $12,425,000-ish. Murdaugh's clients trusted him, and he used that trust, according to the prosecutor Waters. He used that trust, used his family name, his law license, everything else to deceive them and to steal their money and use it to pay off loans and bad credit cards and buy drugs. He never was involved in anything but heavy spending and heavy debt. And that's what led to all of this. Now, he liked to say it was nothing more than just a drug addiction. Now, keep in mind the prosecutors initially charged Murdaugh with about 101 financial crimes, things that included breach of trust, money laundering, and tax evasion. But all of those crimes involved 18 different victims. I suspect there were many more that they couldn't put cases together on. We may learn of more in the future, although I don't know that it'll ever go back to court. But under the plea deal, the prosecutors and the defense agreed to 22 crimes, and that touched each of the 18 victims. His victims included people like Gloria Satterfield. Do you remember her? She was their longtime maid who slipped on the steps and later died as a result of that. The thing that enraged me was the reminder that at her funeral, Murdaugh put his arms around family members and he promised them that he would take care of their families. He promised them that he would get money and help them pay off their bills and deal with the loss that they had. Well, he did get about $4 million, but he later stole every penny of it. Now, Satterfield's son, Tony, said that while he prays for Murdaugh and forgives him, he'll never forget how the family was treated. He said, "I really don't have the words. You lied. You cheated. You stole. You betrayed me and my family." Pretty stern words. It's so sad that they had to even mention those. Murdaugh looked on, periodically nodding, acting as though he's really listening closely. Now, the next one that I thought was interesting was Sandra Taylor, who was killed in an auto accident by a drunk driver. She left behind 3 children. She's not around. Murdaugh said he'd take care of it and get him money. He did get him money, $180,000, but they never saw $180,000. Murdaugh slipped $150,000 into his own pocket and gave the surviving family members $30,000, which I assume they were probably pretty grateful for until they found out what he really did. In response to some of these, Gloria Satterfield's daughter or sister, when she was on the stand, said, that family lost a mother, and he stole every dime from them. She wondered if he even had a soul, and that's an interesting question. I wonder how all of you are feeling about what's going on in that thing. Well, Tuesday's hearing doesn't mark an end to Murdaugh's legal troubles. Again, he may end up going back to trial for murder. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't think it will happen. But he's also waiting charges on other federal financial crimes. And he still faces insurance fraud crimes and other local charges, including back in September of 2021 when he hired his buddy to shoot him and kill him on a roadside. You might remember that. We talked about it on Profiling Evil. I certainly talked about it on Court TV and News Nation on many nights, saying that I didn't believe it. But the thing that's so significant there is he wanted to get a $10 million life insurance policy to his surviving son. Well, the bullet only grazed him, and the cousin messed up and didn't kill him. I don't know. Be interesting what your thoughts are below on that particular one. Now, keep in mind that Murdaugh didn't accept any real blame in this thing outside of blaming his drug addiction. He said it was all about the painkillers, and that led to all of the thefts. Now, it might be true. Many crimes are fueled by drug abuse, but there's still a personal choice to start using drugs, and then there's a personal choice to start cheating people as a part of it. He said he gave detailed apologies to everybody, including he also on the stand apologized to his surviving son, his family members. And again, think about this, Maggie's family and others that were sitting there, including other victims. He even went as far as saying, I hope in time that each of you would be willing to talk with me. He wants him to visit him in prison. He said, I hope as time goes on we can get together and I can reiterate just how sorry I am about what happened and how important it was to Murdaugh, he said, that you know that I really am sorry that it happened. Well, after that speech, Prosecutor Waters stood up and told the judge the same thing he told him during Murdaugh's murder trial. He said Murdaugh is the kind of guy who lies nonstop, conjures up false sincerity, and he can do it like nobody that Waters has ever seen. He said, quote, he's good. He can look people in the eye, but we've seen it all before. The main thing he was concerned about, in Waters' opinion, was how he thought others were perceiving him, and he manipulated in order to get it to be the perception that he hoped for. Now, this case, again, is long from over, but the insurance policy and the thing that we can bank on is the fact that Alec Murdaugh now has 28 years that he has to face for these financial crimes. Even if the defense is successful in getting that murder trial retried, Alec Murdaugh will not be leaving prison. He will be there and forced to continue his defense from inside of that jail. Now, I've attached Judge Newman's comments at the end of this video so that you can listen to what happened in court yesterday. I thought it was really compelling, and I thought it was really a good explanation of how this has personally impacted Judge Clifton Newman through this process. We've all looked at this case for more than a year and a half, 2 years. This thing has been a big deal in the true crime community, and I believe will continue to be as more information unfolds. That orange jumpsuit looks really good on Alec Murdaugh, in my opinion, and I hope that it's what he wears for the rest of his life. But here's something else that really bugs me, and that is that Alec Murdaugh tried to convince the judge that he's doing good behind bars, that he's encouraging others and helping them to become better people. Well, he is now truly a jailhouse lawyer, and he's providing insight and counsel to other offenders of how to beat the system and get out of prison and not be responsible for what they've been convicted on.
It was September of 2021 when the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court assigned me to preside over the pending investigations involving the various offenses that you are being investigated for, initially including these financial crimes and the murder cases. And I have lived with this case now for over 2 years, and I have 34 days left before active retirement. And after imposing this sentence, your life will continue. I will turn the page and leave you behind. You're quite an enigma, a person that many of us thought we knew. And as I stated earlier, I can only recall you as being a fun-loving, happy person. I've never seen you sad. I've never seen you being anything other than a friendly, caring person. And it's so disappointing to see you again in this setting. I believe the last time we saw each other and you were not in jail was at a conference when you were poolside having a good time. And as it turns out, that was a couple of months after the passing of your wife and son. But you were having a good time, made nothing of it, and then the Labor Day weekend events occurred, and next thing I know, I'm assigned to preside over all of your matters. not only your matters, but others as well. And we started out with over 100 charges, indictments against various folks, and we've whittled that down to just a handful outstanding. And I'm happy to turn the page and turn, not turn the remnants over to anyone else, but to certainly turn over anything pending against you to someone else. It's been said that these are white-collar offenses. I've never had that distinction. I've never thought of it that way. I've looked at criminal offenses as criminal offenses. You know, 3 property crimes in South Carolina you can get 10 years in prison. People have gotten 10 years for shoplifting, 3rd offense. I've sent people into retirement for committing criminal offenses over and over and over again. But I've never thought of it as being a white-collar offense. Having had employees do embezzlement, church secretaries stole money, preachers stolen money, many offenses. But I never draw a distinction between a violent crime and other crimes. Certainly the law makes a distinction, and many violent crimes are non-parole offenses. The plea I'm accepting with you, you must serve 85% of the time. The parties have indicated that they are the victims, to the extent that they can be called victims. That's my preferred term for the group of people who have been preyed upon or victimized. They've all indicated that they would like for the court to accept the negotiated sentence. It is a stern sentence. The question was asked, what kind of animal are you? You're an enigmatic person. I don't know that you understand yourself. What comes to mind is a young man that I sentenced to death penalty for killing a police officer and setting his body on fire. And though personally I was opposed to capital punishment, he was sentenced to death. And in writing up that sentence report, I concluded that he was heartless. He was just empty. And when I see you and I listen to you and I reflect on all that I've seen since being appointed, assigned to these cases, you come closest to that young man. Being empty, I don't see anything. I tried to reach you at sentencing in the other case. I've listened to you here today, and I don't see anything there. Hopefully something will emerge within your spirit, within your soul. Certainly, being a person of your age and intelligence and experience, you have a lot to offer to the people that you encounter on a daily basis in the institution, and I think it's admirable that you've indicated that you will help them and continue to try to do good by them. You'll certainly have a lot of opportunity to do that. You know, as we look at it, all of us, you know, none of us are perfect. Many of us do things that we shouldn't do. it's just unimaginable to me that you have done some of the things that you've done. And whether it's you or someone you become upon using drugs or through the process of just committing the crimes over and over the period of years, I don't know. I don't even know who I'm speaking to now. But being a person of power and influence, and the question is raised of what type of character do you have? A person who would prey upon folks who are vulnerable and who are of a lower perceived estate than you, how you would prey upon those people who you say you love, and you would capitalize on a disparity of what you have versus what they had and what they need and what they desired. You know, in my years, I know of no greater joy as a lawyer that I've had during my 47 years as a lawyer than the joy of having a satisfied client, of delivering good results for a client and experiencing that joy with them. I can think of no greater joy than I've experienced in being able to deliver on behalf of a client. And I'm sure you've experienced that joy as well, until you decided that the only joy you're concerned about was your own. I take no joy at all in imposing this sentence, but it is what it is. And you'll have to suffer the consequences of your acts, continue to suffer the consequences, and hopefully some good will come out of you as you move forward. There are a number of counts here, a number of indictments, and you'll get an individual sentence as to each one. On indictment, GS 4727, for money laundering, the sentence is 20 years. Obtaining signature of property by false pretenses, the sentence is 10 years. The second count of obtaining property by false pretenses, count 7, 10 years. Breach of trust with fraudulent intent, value more than $10,000, the sentence is 10 years. Another, obtaining property by false pretenses, count an indictment 4730, count 4, sentence is 10 years. Money laundering on indictment, same indictment, count 5, sentence is 20 years. Money laundering, count 8 of that indictment, the sentence is 20 years. Breach of trust with fraudulent intent, an indictment number 32, count 1, sentence is 5 years. Money laundering under indictment number 33, count 2, the sentence is 20 years. Money laundering under indictment 34, count 2, the sentence is 20 years. forgery, value $10,000 or more under indictment 35, count 5, the sentence is 10 years. The computer crimes under indictment 36, the sentence is 5 years. Breach of trust with fraudulent intent under indictment ending in 37, the sentence is 10 years. All those sentences will run concurrent with each other. Money laundering under indictment ending in 38, count 2, the sentence is 7 years consecutive to sentences previously stated. Under indictment 4701, breach of trust with fraudulent intent, the sentence is 10 years concurrent. Breach of trust, fraudulent intent under indictment ending in 02, count 1, sentence is 10 years. Under indictment ending in 10, count 1, sentence is 5 years concurrent. Money laundering in indictment ending in 23, count 3, the sentence is 20 years. Under indictment ending 24, obtaining goods under false pretenses, sentence is 10 years. Willful intent to evade or defeat payment of taxes under indictment 34, sentences 5 years concurrent. You have one 20-year sentence and a consecutive 7-year sentence for a total sentence of 27 years. Most of the offenses pled to are serious offenses under the law, subjects you to the 3 strikes law. You are given credit for time served pursuant to section 241340 to be calculated by the South Carolina Department of Corrections. I think that completes the sentence. Anything further regarding this sentence?
Your Honor, just for clarification, and I think the sentencing sheets reflect this, but he's got all those sentences concurrent for 20,
yes,
and then there's one 7-year consecutive sentence. So he's got a 27-year sentence, 85% parole
yes,
eligible. I mean, max out.
Yes.
Right.
And it's reflected on the sentencing sheet.
Yes, sir.
Any comment about that, Mr. Waters or Mr.?
That is correct, Your Honor. There's 20 years at 85% and then a 7 at 85%. And again, those are no parole offenses, meaning got to do 85%.
Right.
Or more, depending on how he behaves.
And that's the sentence of the court. Mr. Murdaugh, any final comments?
No, sir. I will just reiterate what I did say to all of you.
Hey, folks, I hope that you have a wonderful Christmas season. I hope that you spend time with family. I hope that you decorate a Christmas tree. And if you're Christian, that you look at the value of what Christmas speaks to us. For those who are of other faith traditions, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas in your own way, Happy Holidays. It's a time to be inclusive, folks, and not be exclusive. It's a time to treat people with goodness and not meanness. Now, I'm heading to Austria in a couple of days, and I'm going to be there and in Germany through about the end of December. I'm really looking forward to it. My wife's joining me, and we're going to spend some time hitting some Christmas villages in the evening. So I'll probably sign on from time to time, but I want to let you know that in January, we've got a special thing coming to you. We've listened to you, we've heard your requests, and starting in January, on the first Monday of every month, we're going to bring back choir practice. I hope that you'll be there and join us with that choir practice and be a part of it. We're going to spend a whole lot more time talking with you and answering your questions, and we'll invite some guests in from time to time to chat as well. So please make sure you're checking out Profiling Evil on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And make sure you're checking out Profiling Evil podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. If you're in Southeast Asia, check out Profiling Evil through Mapping Evil with Mike King. You can find it there on your favorite podcast platform. And make sure, above all, that you keep low risk in the decisions that you're making. When you're shopping, don't leave packages in the car. Put them in the trunk if you got to run into another store. Make sure you're parking in well-lit places, and make sure that you're carrying your mobile device with you. And if you feel uncomfortable, go ask for mall security or whoever in the area to help you get safely to your car and on your way. Make sure you kind of peek in the back seat as you're getting in, and just be low risk. Thanks from all your friends at Profiling Evil, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.